let's go. Welcome to the main event. Applying pressure, but I promise I ain't make it then.
14 years of videography experience between myself and Cameron, and we're going to try to condense all of what we know about videography and running a business down into this one episode. So, Cameron, first of all, how are things? How are you doing?
Happy to be here. Happy for round two.
So now, is the hurricane messing you up at all? The tropical storm?
Of course it is. Yeah. We're both in a weather-dependent business here, so Mother Nature determines when we make our money.
Well, I think the biggest nightmare is that it said in Philly it was going to rain all day today, and it didn't. There was like no rain until later today. So everybody's trying to cancel on me. Everybody's trying to push me to the weekend or to next week, which of course I'm already booked. And so they have to push until the end of next week when today would have been perfectly fine to shoot. So look, you know it, and I'm sure that a lot of people knowing it or watching this podcast, listening to it, know as well. So really quickly, just some updates, some housekeeping things. I am putting this podcast up on all the other platforms, so you can find it on Apple Music, Apple Podcasts. You can find it on Spotify, anywhere that you'd usually find your podcast. Links to all of those will be down in the description. We also are thinking about maybe doing this as a live stream. Cameron, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, today's kind of a test run of that on its own, just because Billy last second brought some topics to the table that I have no history of. I asked him the questions. He's like, no, I'll just ask you whenever we're recording. So any reaction I have today is essentially live.
Perfect. Well, look, the live streams, I think, just kind of adds a cool community element, being able to interact with people live right then and there, being able to, field questions, being able to, maybe even ask you guys questions. Doesn't matter. I think that'd be really cool to do some sort of live element to this, whether it's once a month, whether it's once every quarter. Who knows? We'll kind of get there as we go. Also, ask your questions. Doesn't matter if you Instagram DM us. Doesn't matter if you find us on X. It doesn't matter if you're here on YouTube or really anywhere that allows commenting on this direct episode. Just leave us a comment. Leave us a question. We'd always love to answer it right then and there in the comment section, or save it for another podcast to cover as a topic or just as a general question. And the fourth thing under there, Cameron, I think that we will leave out for this one.
We'll leave that one out.
So now for our episodes, I really do want to try to break it down into different sections just to kind of keep things a little bit concise, keep us on the right track so we don't rant and ramble too much, and also to give you guys some timestamps if you want to jump around and check out what we're talking about specifically. So first, I want to just do a breakdown of what you need to run a videography business. Then we want to go over the journey of gear. So this is going to be like stuff that we've used, stuff that we can recommend. Of course, you've got to talk about gear when you're talking about photo and video. We also want to talk about clients, dealing with them, starting a business and picking up clients, as well as just continuing to grow your clientele throughout the course of running your business. Then I want to talk on pricing. Pricing is definitely something important to discuss. I then want to discuss growing your business. Well, we want to discuss growing your business. We then want to kind of wrap up with some story time and then discuss artificial intelligence. So we have got a packed list of things to discuss here. So, Cameron, break down on what is needed to run a videography business.
Ooh.
Just go. Just what do you have for me? Like, what do you have as like a high level thing that you think that you would need to run a video business?
In terms of high level, honestly, being passionate about it. I know that's going to be such a cop-out answer. Two things is being passionate about it, because that's going to set you aside from everybody else that feels like the editing is so much work, that the shooting is so much work. They're trying to get every dollar pinched in when you might genuinely just love the job, and that allows you to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week and feel like you're doing a hobby as opposed to an actual job. And then customer service, by far. The productions already is just a space that I think needs more of that. A lot of these people are creatives. They're a little bit more difficult to work with. So if you can step into this field, provide a really high quality end result, and also just be a pleasure to work with all the way throughout it, you're 70% of the way there.
Yeah, I mean, I look at some of the people that I'm friends with that are incredible photographers or videographers, and they just don't have a full schedule. And I think it comes down to just not having a good business acumen. Like it's the drive, it's the desire to turn your passion into a job, into something that actually brings you money. I think it's also a sense of like not being lazy, like not to be that guy and to try to push like that grinding culture where everybody needs to be working at every single second. But if you don't put yourself out there, and if you don't like try, if you don't give it an effort on the business side, you're not really going to go anywhere. You're not going to turn your passion into something that makes you money. Again, like there's people out there that do really, really, really good work, and they're trying to break into, being a freelancer or maybe even going and working for a company, but they just don't seem to have, the business side or the business mind, which I think is something that is almost like a plague within the creative industry, because while people are really good at framing, lighting, editing, storytelling, it doesn't matter. They might not be the best at, running a business, which is another reason why I wanted to start this podcast, to kind of open up that dialogue between you and I about running a business, which I know you're kind of in that position where you're running a larger business.
Yeah, I'm real excited for that aspect. I actually did business coaching, and me and Billy were talking about starting that back up together. But I did business coaching for a while as well. Honestly, there's so many different elements to it, and it really comes down to what each person needs to work on the most, because everyone's a little bit different as the things they're trying to provide. But overall, like, to differentiate, you have to be different, and kind of breaking those rules. A lot of people, whenever I went into the space, for example, I saw everybody charging the same way, which was dollar per square foot whenever it came to real estate. Or turnaround times, like for whenever I did wedding videography, it's always 2 to 3 months. Like every single productions company is 2 to 3 months. You and I both know it doesn't take that long to edit a wedding. So why not be different? Why not go in there and completely mix things up and be the one person out there that does 1 week turnaround times, or the one person that charges flat rate? Everything you can do to differentiate and kind of know who your ideal client is, and making that ideal client as happy as possible working with you. That's really what we would break down whenever I did business coaching, is going down to every single granular element as to how can we make this as seamless as a process for the client as possible, which definitely is different than what you were talking about, Billy, of just knowing how to operate the cameras, knowing how to edit. It's really putting yourself in their shoes and just making it seamless.
Yeah, the shooting and editing part of it is like 50% of it. Mm-hmm. Honestly, maybe even less. Even less.
When I hired Brandon, Brandon was our first shooter, and I remember he came and he had never held a camera before, never edited anything before, and he just said, "I love what you guys do. I think it's the coolest thing, and I want to do it." I told him he is already 50% of the way, all the way through his training, just from starting, just because the way he presented himself, the way that he talked, the confidence that he had, like that is so far differentiating. And even my competition now, I see they're great editing, great shooting, great editing, but they do not know how to communicate.
Yeah, like think about when you go on Instagram, how many great reels you see of people that you've never even heard of. Like there's just so many people out there that are trying to fight for business, and if they just don't have it, if they don't have what it takes to actually get the business, again, that's such a big piece of it. Now, here's a question for you. As a prerequisite, do you need a degree? Do you need a college level degree in order to do something like this?
No, not at all. I've not even a little bit. And whenever I dropped out, so I dropped out at 19. I started doing it for 6 months and really started kicking things off by doing the things that I just said, of just really kind of changing things up and differentiating. But no, I started doing it. I was offered multiple jobs at over a 6-figure salary to come work for them and basically get out from being on my own and just being a dedicated videographer for certain companies with no degree. I actually kind of flexed the idea that I didn't have a degree whenever I was doing my presentations, that I was so passionate about this, I dropped out to pursue it. And I've never had anybody really blink an eye at that. They actually appreciate it.
Yeah, look, I've never had somebody say to me, "Hey, where'd you go to college?" If someone asks me where I go to college, it's more so like a camaraderie thing. Like, where'd you go and how did you like it? It's not like, where did you go and what did you study? What was your GPA? What classes did you take? Right? Like, you don't get asked those questions in this field. It's more so, hey, do you have an Instagram link to see some of your work? Or like, hey, who are some of the clients that you've worked for? Right? I mean,
yeah, I'll take it a step further. The people that we're hiring right now, because we're going through another round of hiring, I couldn't even tell. We have set up interviews and kind of are leaning towards the people we're going to pick. I don't know what colleges they went to. I didn't even remember looking at it on their resume. I don't care. I care about time allocation. That's it.
So for me, I went to college. I majored in computer science. I had a minor in film, and the film minor wasn't even like shooting technicality. It was almost like film history. Like all we really did was like discussed things and didn't actually use gear, which was bizarre. And then I did some computer science classes as well. But again, like those things are not what set me up to be where I am right now. In fact, the learning on my own that I did during college to kind of build my business was almost outpacing what I was learning in college in this field. And I think that the best way to actually get experience is to just go and do it yourself. Like I remember when I was first getting started, I would go and take photos of random houses that were really nice in my area to build up my portfolio. I didn't care if I was contracted to go and shoot that home. I didn't care whose house it was. I built a portfolio of photos that I've taken, and it doesn't matter if I've worked for the person that actually was selling that house or building the house. It really just came down to the actual photo that I took. And then from there, it was like, hey, you've got some nice photography. Would you like to work for us?
That's throwback to Jack Kramer, be a shark. I did that. I would go shadow. I remember shadowing one of my buddies that was doing a wedding, and I just made sure that whenever I was there, kind of second shooting and shadowing, I shot enough to make my own wedding film. And so every single shot, I was almost cutting in front of him to make sure I got my angle to get the best wedding film possible. So then I could sit there. I sent it to his clients first, which probably wasn't the best look looking back. But I also, and I told him like, hey, like I just want to send this to you quickly. But I also put that on my website. I started advertising myself as look at this wedding that I shot, even though I was just there as a second shooter. It's really going the extra mile with it.
Yeah. Now here's a question, because the title of the video is about videography. Let's talk photography for a second. Like, do you offer photography services? I know you do real estate photography as well as the video portion, right?
We definitely do. We do real estate photo, and then everything else is kind of on a per case basis, really just for clients that know us well enough. But we're not just going out and doing like maternity photos or things like that. We don't advertise that.
Yeah, I really want to like dissect this topic a little bit more in a future episode, because there's a lot to kind of discuss here on our plate about, what we want to talk about in terms of videography and whatnot. But like, I don't know if you can survive as a photographer. I feel like you need to offer some sort of video services. Like, I think at least the way that I think companies should be set up is mainly video, and they also offer photo when someone needs it. And that's kind of how I run my own personal business. Like, I'll go out and do real estate photography. Like today, my day was actually mostly photography and not a lot of video. But usually what I'll do is I'll offer my services as video based. And that's like, oh, you need photos as well? Yeah, let's add that on. So I like to be well versed in a lot of these different areas so that somebody can come to me and know that they can get all the services that they need. But that really just falls in line with the industries that Cameron and I serve. So real estate, construction, general marketing style videos and commercial photo and video for people. Like, I'm not going out there and just doing a one-off headshot session or a one-off, like you said, maternity session, right? Instead, I'm more so trying to find somebody that I can build a long-term relationship with. And it's like, oh, you also need a headshot that you're going to use for the next 5 years. I'm not going to turn you away. I'm still going to do that.
For sure. And that kind of goes to like what I was saying in the beginning of finding your ideal client, who you think your ideal client would be, and then just make their life as easy as possible. And so I've kind of found that with the clients that I have, they don't want to go shop around and find another photographer and then have to schedule us at one time and the photographer at another time. So we basically are almost in the business of going in, speaking to the businesses we work with and being like, we are here to cater to all of your needs. If there is something that we can't do, we will find it for you. So that way, like, I'm always remain the same point of contact with these people. So if they need a specialized headshot photographer, I will go find it for them, provide that information, and like get them set up. But I want to always be like the main point of contact for any sort of content creation with any of the clients we have. And that just gives me more of an element of control. And it also just goes the extra mile of, if you're admitting your weaknesses there, as opposed to, I'm sure Billy, me, you, or anybody else in the beginning would be like, oh, I can do that. But you're not going to be the best at it. Why would you kind of taint your name with all the other things you are great at by trying to do something you're not going to be great at?
Sure. I think that trying to specialize in something and then lean on other people that are good at their specialties is super important. There's a lot of things that I just can't do that I would be happy to refer the business out. Like event photography and stuff like that. It's just not my wheelhouse. And if somebody needs it, I like to be upfront with them. Like, I won't try to fake it until I make it at this point in my career. I think that in the beginning, it was like when I had no experience, I would take on any work possible and I would just like try to make it work. If someone said, hey, can you photograph a home? I'd say, yeah, I've done dozens, when maybe it was only like my very first house that I was photographing, So faking it in the beginning can work to kind of try to get some business, to try and build up your portfolio and stuff like that. But at this point now, I would much rather try to find someone that is special in their own regard, doing something that I would, not normally be good at. Yeah. So now for me, Cameron, as a freelancer, I do, I guess refer jobs out just because I can't do some things on my own. So are you at a point right now with your company where with all of your employees, you can handle all of your clients' needs? Or do you find yourself also having to potentially refer out to maybe even another company that does the same thing that you do? So like, do you have to go and find somebody else to shoot a real estate video for you just because you're too busy?
No, we wouldn't do that. So the only thing we'll refer out to is like, I'll give you an example of recently somebody came in and said, hey, we want to do this, these couple of lots, but we want really crazy overlays on it. Like to the point, it's essentially CGI. It's like almost past After Effects abilities of like doing all this crazy stuff. And so I tell them what we can do. So I'm like, instead of that, here's what I would recommend. We can go and do all the drone footage. We can get a voiceover on it. We can like do everything to the top of our capabilities. And then anything past that, you're going to have to find another vendor. But I wouldn't just refer them. I would never refer a client to a direct competitor, because by the time you do that, that's just kind of giving them away or giving your competition your client. So no, only for like super specialized stuff that we genuinely couldn't do. But in terms of what we're able to take in, that's kind of the advantage of having a company is we have room. Like we're able to accommodate.
Sure. Yeah. So see, now I'm totally different because as a freelancer, I have nobody to lean on within my own internal company. So when I go away and I have somebody requesting a shoot and they need it that day that I'm gone, it's kind of like, what do I do? You know what I mean? So I've built up a really good connection of people within my area that I'm good friends with that would never take a client of mine, but would happily work with them while I'm gone. So there's people that I know that I work with that I almost consider as friends. Like all my clients are like really good friends of mine. I almost feel bad charging them because it's just fun to like hang out with them and do what I love to do for them. So when I leave and let's say somebody needs something while I'm gone, I'll say, hey, I'm not here, but I have a friend. His name is X and he'd be happy to shoot for you while I'm gone. And then I'll just link them up and like, again, I think this comes from the freelancer in me. I'm not one to try and set it up directly. Like I don't say, hey, Joe is going to cover the shoot for you. You're going to pay me and I'm going to pay Joe. Instead, I just link them up. They handle everything on their own and then I'm not involved at all. Mm-hmm. So for me, like I have a really good established relationship with a lot of my clients to the point where they'd understand, hey, I'm just going to go and use Joe for this one. And then I'll keep calling Billy afterwards. And really, I think that it's a matter of trying to stand out within my market amongst my friends. It's almost like you have these friends that are acquaintances that do the same thing as you, and sure, you have this relationship, but you also try to outshine them so that when your clients go and they try to see like, or they might use somebody that is referred to you just on like a cover basis, they're like, oh, hey, yeah, he was really great while Billy was gone, but I'm really excited to go back to Billy. So that's kind of how I've tried to build things.
Like have good enough of a quality product. That's where like, this might sound silly to some of you guys. We don't do any essentially like long-term contracts. Like a lot, like we were talking about Pike, and of course we have to bring up Pike every episode. Like a lot of people ask, like, is Pike on a retainer? Does Pike pay you monthly? Like how does that work? We just are so confident in the high quality product we deliver that we charge per shoot, and we just know that they're going to come back. So it kind of goes into that same mentality of like, if they had to go use somebody else, they're going to come back because there's nobody out there. I'm very, very confident in our product in the area that we're at, that nobody can do what we do for what we charge and everything that comes with it, with like the customer service, just the experience that we have, all that stuff. To touch on, because this was something interesting that I said, but forever ago, somebody asked me about the ability to say no, essentially, like, do you turn away shoots, or kind of a similar question. I think it really depends on like where you are in your process. So if you're earlier on, and Billy, agree with me or disagree with me, I would have shoots come in that I feel like I couldn't take it on just because I was so busy and had so much stuff going on. But because I was earlier on and trying to establish myself, I would find a way. Or somebody would reach out and say, hey, I really want 3D overlays on these videos. I would find a way. I would stay up all night to figure it out and make sure that I could deliver that back to them, as opposed to turning them away or recommending them to somebody else. But that's kind of the beauty behind it, is as you get into it, as you start to establish yourself and getting more confident, there becomes a day that you're able to say no and not feel like you're missing out. Like Billy said, he has such a loyal client base that feels like his friends, that he has the ability to say no and not feel like he's taking a financial hit. But if you're earlier on in your career, I definitely recommend the grind set of just taking in as many as possible, getting the experience. I had shoots come in that I didn't even want to do, like a music video one time, for example, but I don't care. I wanted the money. I wanted the experience. I wanted to know what it was like, and just put everything under my belt that I could to really get me to the next level.
Yeah. I'm at a point right now where I try to fill my schedule between 10 to like 2 hours before the sun sets, which of course always changes. So I'll start my day off at 10, and then I try to book my shoots in like hour or 2 hour intervals, depending on where it's at, how far I need to travel, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll start my day at 10. I'll end about 2 hours before the sun sets. And then usually I'll offer like a twilight shoot at nighttime, which you can really only do one per night. But I kind of have like my 8 a.m. slot every day as like a reserve. So I'll have people call me and they'll be like, I need to get fit in. I need to get this done by the end of the week, whatever. And I can usually fit them in at 8 a.m. or I can reverse and fit them in towards the end of the day. But yeah, man, it definitely can be tough.
Yeah.
So, you know, kind of looking at it, like if you have a business with employees, it's easy to service a whole ton of people. But if you're just a freelancer and you're trying to make it work and you're trying to grow your business, I think you've got to be better at saying no, which I'm no good at. I hate saying no. I hate turning people away. It doesn't matter. They could be somebody that has burned me, you know, a couple times. They've paid late, whatever, and I'll still break my back to try and make things work for them, which could just be a personal thing. So,
and it was for me too.
Here.
Sorry, it was for me too. But another advantage too with like the company side, which Billy, I'll roast you here a little bit, or roast you here a little bit. If you get sick, you're done for the week. Like you lose that's kind of like, Billy knows this. I'm going to urgent care immediately after we record this podcast because I have a splinter all the way up in my foot right now and I can't walk on my left foot. So tomorrow shoots aren't an option. Like I'm probably gonna have to get that thing cut out of me and I'm not gonna be able to walk. But I'm not sitting here stressed out. Like all of my clients are gonna be taken care of. Like everything's gonna be okay. But that was like my biggest stressor in the beginning when it was just me was, I mean, because as luck would have it, you know, the day that I get sick, the next day is the client that maybe I didn't do my absolute best work on the last time. And I feel like we're kind of on the fence there. Or, you know, it's a full day of shoots that I'm gonna have to reschedule people and they all needed that content that day to go live the next day. So now I feel like I have much more of a safety net to be able to call out if I need to call out, as opposed to being an individual. I mean, has that burned you in the past, like getting sick or?
You know what? So luckily, knock on wood, I have a great immune system and I usually don't get sick. Like I haven't been violently sick in years.
We're not going to have a podcast next week. Billy's going to get sick this week and we're not going to be able to record.
Yeah. Well, or I'm just going to cancel on you last minute like I've done for the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But no, so for me, when it comes down to what I'm worried about, look, Cameron, you and I drive the same car. Dude, the amount of tires I go through on the Model Y Performance is insane. I'm on construction sites. I pick up nails all the time. And so that is like one thing where like I will get home at the end of the day and I'll wake up and I have a flat tire because there's been a nail in my tire and it just deflates overnight. And so I have an air pump with me that I, you know, fill my tire up with like if I need to. But it just comes down to like exactly what you said. Like I need everything to go perfectly. And if there's something that takes me out for the day, I'm totally screwed and I'm completely scrambling. So
yeah,
obviously there's pros and cons.
Before we switch to the next topic, because we're still on business, what is your overall, if you could give one tip to the audience of having a successful productions company, what's your one piece of advice?
My one piece of advice is just to be easy to work with. Like, I know that that's what we've been talking about, but I think that that's just like the biggest thing. Like, if you can be easy to work with, be easy to schedule, quick turnaround. I mean, this easy to work with really is just like a general topic. It's just a general understanding. But like, if you can just be easy to work with in every regard of your business, people are going to keep coming back because they're going to really get used to that convenience, right? Being able to accommodate weird requests, being able to go over and above, being able to, you know, work through, you know, hot days, being able, if you're doing real estate photography, show up, the house isn't ready, you're moving stuff. Like just generally being easy to work with and not being a total pain is what any and everybody's looking for. And the moment that you start to give somebody a little bit of issue is the moment that they start wondering, hey, would my experience be better elsewhere? So I think that's by and large number one. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, mine would be similar. I'll take it a little bit of a step further. Like for example, one of our biggest competition here, the only way you can book with them is through online booking. I know a ton of people, myself included, I hate online booking. I like to ask questions. I like to ask advice as to what the best time of day would be for the shoot, things like that. So for us, we do text, we do email, we do phone call. If someone does online booking, we typically call them just to give them an in-person experience before they pay, just so they know that they're being kind of, you know, cradled throughout the experience. The biggest piece of advice for me, every single one of you is going to go through conflict at some point with one of your clients. They're unhappy about something that either is or outside of your control. The thing that took me 2 years to learn that I think will save you 15 years off of your business life is the best way. Like, don't think about winning the argument. Your way to win is to get them walking away being like, Sky Visions is the best, or your company is the best, or whoever you work for. As soon as I started doing that, as soon as somebody would come in and be upset about something, even if it was something outside of my control, like weather, I would sit there and I start the sentence the same way of like, listen, I'm on your side with this. Like, we're going to make this right. I don't care if I have to lose money on this shoot. I'm going to make sure that you walk away happy. And that just puts everybody at ease, and they are just relaxed. And for the most part, even if you have to net a zero, let's say you have to go out and reshoot the entire thing, they're going to come back. Now, obviously, you got to determine if this is a client you want to work with for the long haul, but that would be my biggest piece is don't worry about winning the argument or trying to prove to them of like, well, it was the weather's fault. And like, none of that is going to help them at all. They just want what they paid for. And the quicker you can get them that, the happier they're going to be.
Can I potentially name drop who your competition is?
Oh, God.
So I don't know, and I'm just gonna bring something up, and you can tell me whether it's your competition or not.
Okay.
I'm just gonna name drop a company though that I have heard of in the past. HD Bros.
No, that's not. I mean, they are a competition, but that I wouldn't call them my biggest competition.
Well, I mean, look, the thing that I'm talking about here, just kind of reinforcing your point. I go onto a website like theirs, and it just feels like a little bit lackluster. It just feels like there's no soul. It feels like there's no personality here. When you go to book a shoot, you have no idea who you're booking a shoot with. So that's why for me, like, my personality and like my person is everything. At first I tried to start a company. I still have an LLC that is just used for basically like tax purposes and write-offs and stuff like that. But like, my main thing is me. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, people are working with me because they want me to show up. And Cameron, like, even when I go onto your website, like, there's just like so much more character, and there's like so much more signs of creativity here, which I think is just great. So just like you said,
I thought we were going into a risky territory there of just slandering competition. And I was like,
no. Look,
that'd be a juicy segment just to go through Philadelphia and Charlotte's, all the videographers and photographers, and just roast them to pieces. That would be. I was like, I can't sign off on this.
Dude, custom commercials. I go on your website, custom commercials. It's a photo of you. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a direct connection to you, the person who's actually going to show up and work with me if I'm a potential customer. And dude, online booking, I mean, I have it. I've got the ability to send somebody a link. They can look at my availability. They can book me directly through there. But like, that's probably 10% of the way that I do my bookings. Everything is through text message, email, phone calls, doesn't matter. Someone says, hey, I have this, can you help? And then I propose a date and time, and I say, yes, let's schedule you, right? And then I show up.
Let's get on this thought. So online booking, I've always had an online booking problem in the sense of two things. First of all, logistics of, I don't want somebody, if I'm shooting in the very north part of Charlotte and then they go and book me in the very south part of Charlotte and then the very north part again. Like, I like to be in control of my schedule where I can kind of get my drive time as reasonable as possible. Plus, sun direction and things like that, they can't really guess that. But the bigger issue I have with it, again, kind of comes down to a psychological thing. There are the clients out there that we work with that I swear to God think that they are our only client and that we are just starving over here. And they might like that. There are some people that really like that small business feel of they only do, a shoot a day and they put as much energy into it as possible. And then there's some people that we work with that think that I'm this huge conglomerate of 15 videographers that's pumping out millions of dollars a year in videos. And I like everyone to have their own opinion, and whatever they want to think of me, they can think that. But the second you go to online booking and they go on there, you can essentially calculate what you're making, because they can go through and be like, okay, so this is how many shoots they have per day. They're getting these packages, or blah, 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 blah. And so I like the, not animosity, anonymousness of people not knowing my schedule. Anonymity. Yeah. I like the anonymity of people not knowing how much we do, how much money we make, things like that.
Well, so look, I put booking under our pricing section because I do want to touch on that. We'll get to it. Because I do think that kind of goes in line with pricing. We'll touch on that. But I do want to move on to our next topic here, which is gear. I mean, look, there's an argument that gear doesn't matter. There's an argument that gear is everything. You can't talk about, running a business without talking about the gear that you actually use. Because, of course, being in a video production world, you need lighting, you need audio, you need a camera, you need everything, right? You need all these different things. So, Cameron, we have a couple of little subtopics here. What is right now the number one piece of gear that you can't live without, that maybe is underrated, like something that you like, not just, my camera is my absolute favorite, but is there something that you've purchased that's like completely changed your workflow?
Oh man. I mean, if we're going underrated, I mean, my camera was going to be it. And there's tons of little things for my camera. The fact that I went with Panasonic in-body image stabilization.
You do and you have a big cage on that thing. Like, you have a big rig.
I've got like a pretty decently sized rig. But, you know, I built that thing out just for like, it is the most concise, you know, package of getting the highest quality content possible. So camera, you know, for me, the biggest hack for me is the fact that I don't use gimbals anymore. In-body image stabilization on this camera is insane. I shoot weddings without ever touching a gimbal. I'd say the most underrated thing in terms of like the highest quality, you know, getting the highest quality films is lighting and diffusers. That would probably be like the day that my stuff just leveled up to a different level, is starting to understand lighting.
Sure. Yeah, I've seen some of your behind the scenes that you do, and like your lighting setup is on point. Like you don't just go and blast light on somebody right in the front. Like you actually take the time to craft the entire scene, which I think, look, dude, hats off to you, because I don't do it. But like that is really awesome to see. And also, oh shoot, I had something that I was gonna say.
What's yours?
All right. Well, okay, so dude, mine is not a piece of equipment at all. Mine is not a piece of photo or video equipment at all.
You're gonna cheat me. You're gonna give something that I would have given.
No, dude, I just recently picked up Starlink Mini, and oh my god. So you have the Model Y. I have a power bank in my trunk. I run a USB-C cable up to a DC input adapter. I let it sit on top of the cargo cover pointing out of my trunk, and whenever I'm stopped, it gives me high-speed internet wherever I am. Now, doing photo and video and trying to deliver while I'm on the go and just stay as efficient as possible, being connected at all times is huge. So the actual router is like $600, which is expensive. It's the router and it's the satellite all in one. And then from there, it's $150 a month for unlimited data. But dude, like when I travel, when I go places, and being able to bring that, I could be anywhere. And as long as I can see the sky, I can get like internet connection. And that is a game changer for me. Yeah,
that's wild. Okay, then that's an out of the box answer. I mean, I could have said like the best, like employees were great, or like things aside from photo and video equipment. The Tesla has been, I think Tesla made a videographer car. I think that's what they did with that, because it's just the most ideal videographer car. But no, that would be nice for me too, because we wait until we get back, and obviously we have fiber at home, so everything transfers very, very quickly. But to be able to do same day delivery like that would be sick.
Well, it's not even that. It's a matter of just trying to stay current. So I don't upload my files like at the end of the day. Like so I use an editor for my real estate photography. I don't upload my raw files while I'm on the go. I wait until I'm home to get all of that stuff uploaded. But like again, like I'm starting my day at 10 a.m. I'm getting back later in the day, a little bit before the sun sets. And so for me, like if I took photos all day yesterday and then I have to deliver them the next day, there's not a lot of time to like sit down on my computer while I'm at home and do things, but I've got a lot of time during the day. So I bring my laptop with me. I've got it in the car. I'm usually editing in between shoots, and then just being able to have that nice, stable internet connection is great. Now, I feel like that was a cheap answer because it's not really photography or videography related.
Yeah.
So I guess like if I had to choose something that I use every single day that's really been like a life hack, is like the DJI mics. I really like using them for how quickly and how easily you can get audio. Like audio was always something that I kind of was worried about. And then when Rode released the first like Mic Go set, or whatever they called them, the wireless lav set, that was a big game changer for me. I was like, wow, I can be over here and you can be over there and I can capture audio perfectly. And then I feel like DJI just kind of pumped it up on steroids and gave you a much better product. So yeah, I mean that's been a favorite piece of gear of mine.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. You just sent me back to 7 years ago. Did you use Zoom H1s, or what did you use for audio capture back in the day?
No, I mean, look, a lot of what I was doing was run and gun. So it was shotgun microphones mounted directly to the camera, just trying to capture audio that way. And that's why I was always running into issues. And so again, being able to get that high quality audio, no matter where the person was, they could be across the room, they could be anywhere, and they would have that same audio level, was just so great. Now, I probably started using a wireless lavalier mic like maybe 6 to 12 months into my actual videography career. So it's something I've been using for a good amount of time. But again, like the technology just gets better and better and better to make it so much better. Yeah. Dude, I'll give you an example. The Mic 2. What do you use for audio capture?
We use an assortment of things. We use boom mics. We use everything. Yeah, everything.
Well, so I mean, what is like your main, like on the daily? What
Now
are you
Rode
using the most to capture audio?
So we have both. We have DJI and Rode. We use we use DJI for iPhone content, any sort of like social media stuff. And then we use Rode for professional capture.
Okay, and so I mean, Rode, you're talking about like a boom mic, right?
No, Rode we use Rode for the boom. Sorry, I'm being convoluted. We use Rode boom mics when we're doing commercials. We use Rode the Mic Go 2 system. Like the wireless that you're talking about for like audio capture for things that aren't like huge commercials. And then we use the DJI mics for iPhone content.
What's your difference between the DJI mics and the Rode mics? Why wouldn't you just use the DJI mics for both?
On it, like I was so accustomed to the Rodes, and I've just always used the Rodes and gotten such a great result out of them. The only reason I bought the DJI ones is because they work with the iPhone, and we want to start doing like more iPhone, like behind the scenes content.
Do you have the DJI mics 1 or 2?
Not the transparent one.
Gotcha. So, dude, I mean, look, the new Rode has it too, but the 32-bit float audio is insane. Like, I don't know why that's just becoming like a trend now to include on all the cameras, and why it hasn't been a thing for a long period of time. But I feel like once one company adds it to their product, then everybody wants to jump on and try to add it because it's like, you know, the new hot thing. But man, I'll tell you what, I was shooting an event. It was a real estate event, and they had this guy come out on stage, and he starts out talking like we are now. He then blares the music, the DJ blares the music, and then he starts screaming. I mean, like, I'm trying to communicate with somebody across a football field screaming, trying to pump the crowd up. That's just his shtick, right? That's just his thing. And so I have a DJI mic on him. I have the actual receiver the transmitter on him, so I don't have like any lav mic. It was just, let me clip this on your shirt and run. And dude, I mean, with him yelling, I was able to go into Audition, bring that down, and it sounds like perfect. Like that 32-bit float audio is insane.
Yeah, we have 32. I forget what I have it on. I'm sorry. We also use Tentacle Sync, which has 32-bit float, and that's a wireless recorder that's more like the Zoom H1s, where there's no receiver. Like, it's just genuinely just recording audio out there in the void. But yeah, I mean, for me, like most of the 99% of things, this is where some people can get hyper focused on gear. Like 32-bit float, raw video, like things like that are great in those crazy situations. You know, I hear people talk about how they underexpose by 3 stops, and because they're shooting in raw, they can bring it right back up and everything's fine again. Or just don't underexpose by 3 stops, or just realize that 99% of your shoots aren't going to be a dude on stage screaming and then like doing ASMR. Like it doesn't, most things don't require it. Now I have it all, like I have all the stuff, and it's nice to be outfitted if I need it to be like that. And there's certain convenience sake things where if I'm doing a wedding and I get to put just 32-bit float on them and fuck off on out of there and not worry about it anymore, that's great. But for most of the stuff, and for the people, and I'm imagining a lot of the people listening here don't have access to getting literally every single microphone that's offered, like maybe we have. You know, just be reasonable with your expectations. Like, most of what I do realistically is work in real estate. I'm working with realtors. There's very few times that they're screaming at me. There's much more times that they're just sitting there talking at a normal cadence, and God forbid they like are way too pumped up. I'll just tell them, hey, let's calm it down.
Tone it down.
Let's tone it down and do another take, and everything will be fine. I feel like I could get away with a lower quality camera than I have, lower quality audio that I have, just by like knowing how to instruct people and knowing how to light. Like, whenever I do these commercials, there's times that I will have my, you know, crazy $10,000 plus whole camera rig going, and I'll pull up my iPhone right next to it and get a shot. And the iPhone, like, probably would have been usable just because of the lighting and like the environment that we had set up with them. People fixate on gear a lot. Obviously you need it if you're doing this at the highest level, but I don't think you need to like not buy a piece of gear because it doesn't have 32-bit float or like ProRes RAW enable or anything like that. You can get away without it.
Sure. I mean, look, I would argue that at this moment right now, and I think that this has become true within the past couple of years, and each kind of like area of gear, whether it be audio, video, lighting, whatever, you've kind of reached this plateau now where the new stuff coming out, you're not necessarily getting better quality content, but it's just more convenience features that makes your life easier, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if a new camera came out and it had better electronic image stabilization, like, would it necessarily make my videos better? No, but it would just make my time shooting easier. You know what I mean? So
For sure.
I think that the convenience features are really the reason why people go and they actually upgrade their gear now. And I think it's nice because now you can keep your gear for longer.
Yeah, if you hyper focus, if you hyper focus too much on the gear aspect, because I for example, I have a guy that texted me the other day. He's brand new to this. He's recording on an older Sony camera that only does 8-bit, and he's trying to do log, and I don't get that because log, like for me at least in my experience, like you really need 10-bit or above to really be able to push and pull the colors where you need it to be. But he's just doing what he thinks professionals are supposed to be doing with gear that isn't quite to the par of what professionals are using. So I've gotten some of the craziest shots that I've ever gotten have been using natural light with a $30 diffuser on Amazon, and it works perfect. We have Jimmy rigged stuff.
How do you use the diffuser?
Just
like what's your workflow with that?
I either have somebody there with me, or I ask some poor soul there to hold this diffuser up and block out the sun. And it's a night and day difference. It makes, like, diffusers, if you can use the sun, it is better than any Aperture 1200D or whatever is lighting me right now. It is an incredible look. But yeah, you just hold a diffuser. Just get a big old 8-foot diffuser, or little life hack, umbrellas are cheap as hell. I've got like an 8-foot umbrella that I got for $80, and it's Westcott, which is like a super high-end brand, so you might be able to get a cheaper one. 10 out of 10. Just throw that over someone's head like they're walking in the rain, and they have a beautiful, like, surrounding light that's all soft around them.
So what would you, maybe just kind of in the same vein, what about a bounce? What about backlighting somebody then bouncing the light onto them?
Yeah. The more you learn about lighting, that is the thing that will give you the biggest jump. So from whenever I jumped from using a Panasonic G7 micro 4/3 camera to full frame, let's call that like a 20-foot jump. Me learning lighting was a 100-foot jump. Just in an environment, if I don't have access to lights, knowing where to angle them depending on where the windows are, learning Rembrandt lighting, learning, like you said, bounces, what you can bounce off of, all of that stuff, light distances away from the wall to get a clean bounce. Like right now, it is so simplified to me of I want the largest source of light. So if I have a 600D with 0 attachments to it, and I just have a bright ass light that's shining into the void, I want to point it at a wall. I want to point it at the biggest wall, and I want to point it at the wall that has the least amount of color on it. So if it's a tan wall versus a white wall, I want the white wall. You can save so much time and in effect essentially money, because you can charge your clients less money. Because I'll go to these reel shoots where cost efficiency is everything. They want every reel as cheap as possible, and I'll just bring a 600D and just shine it into a wall, and I have a beautiful looking image, and it's fine.
Yeah, lighting is definitely huge. I mean, you ever see those things on Instagram where it's like with and without lighting? They show the shot without lighting and then they add it, and it just like is so much different and so much better.
Yeah,
I think that lighting is huge.
For the people watching on YouTube, here, I'm gonna turn my key light off. Vastly different. Billy, you can't see this, but vastly different experience by not having a key light versus having it on.
Yeah, dude, it's funny, like my studio here, I just have one light. I just keep it simple, one light right in front of me, illuminates the table. So if I'm talking about drones, it's right here. My backdrop is just all black, so it just is an endless void behind me. But yeah, lighting is huge. I think a general theme that I'm getting from you, and look, I'm the exact same way, is like not getting caught up in the gear that you use is definitely important, but making sure you have what you need to get your job done is really kind of like the way to follow. Like you don't want to try to bring cases and cases and cases of stuff, but instead you really want to streamline your setup down to exactly what you need for each and every day, and maybe have a couple of extra things here and there that you might need. Like for example, you might bring your drone with you, but you might not have any drone shoots, but you have it just in case. So what is something that you have that you bought, you thought you would need, and like you've just never ever used it?
Oh, easy. Matte boxes all day long.
Okay. Then how come on your website here I'm on custom commercials and I see you with a matte box?
Number one, website needs to be redone because that thing's old as hell. And number two, matte boxes are good for one thing and one thing only, and that's behind the scenes content. Because I get to look like I have this big old rig going on, but it is the most cumbersome, it slows me down so much. And when I see like behind the scenes photos of people, and for certain use cases, this makes sense. If you have a big old rig on like a Ronin 2, not like a, handheld gimbal, like a big Ronin 2, you are so limited in what you can get and where you can place that camera and the composition you can do. And I like the idea of just, I'm on my stabilized Lumix S1H, which is on a smaller rig now without a matte box. I've got a V-mount on it. I've got my nice 7-inch monitor on the top. That just everything is built for me to have as much control as possible. Or if I want a complete stabilized locked off shot, I don't need to put it on a tripod or a gimbal. If I want a more of a handheld shaky look for something, I just turn off stabilization and I'm ready to roll. Everything that I did back in the past to try and make my rig look as big as possible. I would get matte boxes. I would get big follows focus systems. I tried going into the, what are they called? The Nucleus Nanos of doing like wireless focus pulling. It's just a waste. Yeah. Dude, you should have seen this. I'll send you some pictures. My rig was stupid. Actually, I'm editing this, so I'm going to throw a picture right now of what my rig used to look like. It was so cumbersome and it didn't make any sense. So now I create way better films. I have a way smaller rig that's easier on my body where I can shoot for longer. I can get it in more places, get more unique composition. And it's just made me a better videographer as opposed to worrying about what it looks like. I do think client perception is a thing. I think you shouldn't just roll up with like a Sony A7S III with no battery grip on it and the smallest pancake lens you can get on Amazon, because there is a piece of it that they're going to look at you. Yeah, I'm calling Billy out. Rolling up to a shoot like that, I don't ever want a client to say, hey, I think my wife has that camera. I think my daughter has that camera. Like, I want them to know that this is professional. You're paying thousands of dollars for something high quality, but I also don't want to just slow myself down and do them a disservice in the process.
Yeah, I was doing a while ago. This is probably the last time that I really was like consciously doing this. I had a roof inspection I was doing, and on the daily I was flying my Mavic 2 Pro, but I showed up with my Inspire 2 just to do this roof inspection because I was like, I'm showing up with a bunch of construction guys. I want them to like see this big drone and they're like, wow, that because with drones you get it all the time. It's like, oh hey, my son has that drone, and you're like, oh great, I'm flying the drone that your son has. But you show up with the Inspire 2 and they're like, okay, we get it. This guy means business.
Yeah. I used to have the Inspire 1, and Jack sold it to me. And I went to a real estate shoot trying to use that. Couldn't put it in the trees. Got way worse composition. We won't go back to podcast episode 1 where we debate, Inspire versus Mavic. But I remember even landing it because I was so inexperienced with it. I guess if you try and land it in sport mode, you just slam that camera in the ground. Is that how that works? Yeah.
I don't think it's possible with the Inspire 3 anymore, but yeah, dude, I've landed the Inspire 2 a couple of times by accident without putting the landing gear down.
Oh yeah, I came in full speed because I'm used to the Mavic just showing off a little bit of just whipping it in at 50 miles an hour and doing that little 180 and landing it on the ground in sport mode and just flooring it into the floor. So I did that with my Inspire in front of the client of like, look at this big fancy drone, and I just ripped that gimbal right off of that thing and just totaled the drone in front of her. Never used it again.
Is that thing still rolling around in your trunk? You had that thing in your trunk for a while, right?
I had that thing in my trunk for a long time. No, when I finally moved to my house, I parted ways with it, but I held on to it for 6 years.
Wow, dude, that's still a long time for it to be sitting in your trunk.
Yeah, well, eventually I moved it into my apartment. I moved it into like my storage closet, and it's half a drone because I slammed off the bottom of it. So I'm just sitting there with like a carcass of an Inspire 1. I don't know who that was for. I think just me to look at it and say, hey, you had an Inspire at one point.
Yeah,
but
well, So to answer my own question, I'll kind of reverse it around on myself in terms of gear that I've bought. I'll tell you what, I think I've done a pretty good job at keeping a streamlined set of gear and not go too overboard. I've tried things here or there in the past, but really I've just tried to keep things down to exactly what I need. So I shoot on the Sony A1. I've got the battery grip, which is great for if I'm shooting portrait style stuff, but it's also just great for extra battery. You can throw 2 batteries in there. And just like you mentioned, it looks much bigger, looks much more professional. I would say the one thing I'm really happy I didn't invest a ton of money into, though, is lenses and glass, which I think might be a hot take. Like, I think that people might, say, well, the glass makes the image, which, okay, that's true. But how do you know what lens you need for each and every day? Like how many different things do you do to the point where you need a different lens? Now, for me, I'm photographing homes. I'm photographing or doing photo and video of homes, and I'm doing photo and video of people. So you've got 2 extremely different things, but still being able to have a 12-24 and 24-70 in my bag at all times covers every single thing I need to do. There's never a time where I'm like, man, I wish I had this lens. Man, I wish I had that lens. I can do everything I need with those 2 lenses no matter what. And you can't convince me any differently.
Okay, well, I'm going to try. Or we're going to have our first heated debate on here. I have Every lens. Like I have bought, I have gone through the zoom time where I was like, all right, zooms are the thing, 24 to 70, 70 to 200, 16 to 35, gotten all my ranges down. Then I was like, no,
Trinity, right?
Yeah, prime is definitely the way to go. So then I switched. I've got every prime you could imagine. I like it. I think I heard an analogy one time. It's almost like an artist brush where you can like pick whatever brush you want for the occasion. And yeah, I mean, I just having everything in my bag, every single shoot that I go to, even if it's just a real estate shoot, I am carrying a 12, a 35, a 50, an 85, and typically a 70 to 200. And I hear what you're saying.
Let me write that down. You have a 12, a 35,
a 50, an 85, and a 70 to 200.
85.
And a 16 to 35. I missed the 16 to 35. I carry that too.
So you carry around 6 lenses with you?
Yep, on every shoot, and I have way more at home. And
well,
let me tell you why.
Are you carrying those in a case? You got them in a case right in your trunk?
No, backpack.
Dude, I'm scratching my head right now. I know you can't see me, but I'm literally scratching my head.
Reason being, so I mean, 12 obviously for real estate. I prefer the Laowa 12mm zero distortion. I think that's a 10 out of 10 lens to get the full room, and then if you need it a little bit tighter, you can crop in just a touch.
12 millimeters is way too wide to photograph a house.
No, small bathroom, stuff like that. Ever since we started using that, I've outfitted all my videographers with it. It is creme de la creme, especially if you're shooting homes that aren't massive and have tighter rooms. I get corner to corner coverage in every single room that I shoot, and there's zero distortion, zero fisheye. And again, if you shoot on a 14 or a 16, it's just cropping in just a touch. But I have more flexibility in terms of capture than can crop in later. I use the 16 to 35 for exterior if I want to get a little bit more compression. I use the 35 for like wider detail shots, the 85 for tighter detail shots like faucets and fixtures and things like that. The reason I like having the 35 and 85 separate is some homes are bigger where I can get more of that depth and back up more with the 85. Some of them aren't. And then the 70 to 200 is really, I don't use that one that often. That one is just if I want crazy compression. If I get an opportunity to do something where I can, shoot an interview kind of style thing, like a commercial style thing at 150 millimeters, like it just gives crazy depth. And I like that look a lot.
You know that meme where it's like you're sitting there and there's all the calculations around you? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's me right now.
What do you do? What do you bring?
My 12 to 24, it's a 12 to 24 G Master, so it's the one with kind of like the fisheye looking lens, but it has no distortion on it when you get out to 12 millimeters. So 12 to 24 by Sony G Master, and then their 24 to 70 G Master. And I have the original 24 to 70. I haven't upgraded to the Mark II. My 24 to 70 has multiple dents in it, and it is beat to hell, but I feel a lot better throwing in an older lens into my backpack and leaving it on the ground if I need to and putting it on a kitchen counter where there's little kids running around. Like, I feel way better using this piece of glass that is sharp, looks great, and gets the job done, but is also a little bit beat up. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, on the daily,
so no primes. You don't have any primes.
I do not own a prime. No.
What are you shooting on? What are you shooting right now? Like what's on
right
your
now?
Right now?
I'm using my 24 to 70 at 35 millimeters.
Yeah,
so
I'm using a 35 millimeter, f1.4. So I get
So,
people in the comments tell us whose camera is higher quality right now, because we'll settle this once.
You're the one that's editing it, so you're gonna somehow degrade the quality of my camera that can shoot 8K video. My camera can shoot 8K video, so let's curb your enthusiasm.
I'm gonna soften his image quite a bit.
I've got a black backdrop behind me, so I don't really care about depth of field in this regard. And I'm actually looking at a monitor right now. I've got a laptop in front of me, and even the laptop that's just in front of me is out of focus at f2.8. So, for me, like, I would love to be able to get some sort of prime just specifically for like a talking headshot. So if somebody wants to sit down and talk, I can set up my camera. I have the ability to move the camera forwards and backwards as much as I would need to, but I just feel like it would slow me down, right? So that's why I would just go and grab my 24 to 70 and make it work with whatever focal length makes sense in the area that I'm shooting. So, I mean, my 12 to 24, it lives on my camera, I would say 75% of the day, and then the 24 to 70 comes out for, whenever I have somebody on camera. So 12 millimeters is great for when I'm photographing homes directly in the city of Philly. It's an old city. You've got these super old row homes. Sometimes you're on a street where your back is up against the other house on the other side of the street. You're zoomed out to 12 millimeters. You're looking up at the house, and you literally can just fit in the top and the bottom, even at 12 millimeters. And you have no room to correct your verticals. It's actually the best when you're on a street where on the opposite side, there's like a stoop, like a porch, and you can kind of elevate yourself and shoot across the street. That is like something that completely makes my day. I could be having the worst day ever, and when I show up and there's a stoop across the street, the absolute best thing.
I want to call this out because you were hating on me for 12 just a second ago, and it sounds like you like 12 quite a bit.
No, look, I can understand 12 when it's needed, but I think that when you're in a room where it's like just an average family room or an average kitchen, like 12 millimeters, you start to look really wide. So in that case, do you grab your 12, throw your 12 on just for a tight bathroom, and then take your 12 off and then put your 16 to 35 back on?
Nope, 12 all day. 12 for video, 12 for photo.
Yeah, see, so I think that for photography, 12 is a little bit too wide, personally. I think that being able to show something between like 18 to 20 millimeters is where I'm at. And then, I can zoom into 24 if I need to, or I can back up a little bit if I'm in like a tighter bedroom. And then my 24 to 70 is great for when I would need to get my detail shots. I can be at 50 millimeters. I can be at 70 millimeters, depending on whatever I would need to photograph, whatever I think calls for it. And then circling back, the 12 millimeters is great for vertical video because you lose so much real estate left to right that you just kind of need to be shooting wider. So it's always nice to have that too.
Yeah, I agree. And for me, like some of this artistically, yeah, like I just got done shooting like an $8 million home. A lot of the shots that I got were 35 and tighter angles with the 16 to 35 on the interior. But there is something to be said about that like grand family room overlooking the lake and getting that 12 and just showing everything in its entirety. And then also on the like more like commercial real estate aspect, when we do apartment complexes and things, a lot of them are just looking for as much information as possible. Like they want to show as much of the room as possible. And also a little bit of like misadvertisement here. They want the rooms to look bigger than they actually are. And the 12 accomplishes that really well.
That is true. A lot of the people that I work with, though, would prefer like a natural looking image, but I can understand how somebody that is not directly invested in the sale of something would just be like, yeah, we want it to look as big as possible. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's talk about budget gear real quick. And I think that kind of like we had mentioned in the beginning about whatever the topic was I wanted to elaborate on. I want to talk about budget gear real quick, but I also want to bring this up in like a full on video because I think that people can not really understand like what gear is needed. So like if you're balling on a budget, Cameron, and let's say you wanted to get started and you're starting with absolutely no equipment, like what would you do to try to piece together a good kit that could get you by with what you do on the daily?
Okay. So And we're okay. So obviously, the first thing, if it's this might be controversial. If it's sub $1,000, I would say an iPhone 15 Pro Max, like something that could be also used as your phone. Like I don't think any of the sub $1,000 DSLRs are worth anything compared to what the iPhone can do. If we're going more professional, I'm a Lumix fanboy. That's typically what I lean towards. I'm sure like the A7S III. I don't know how much those cost now, but Sony's got some good choices as well. I'd probably go with a Lumix. Go for it.
Real quick, a used A6000 on B&H's website, which is a good APS-C camera, is $270.
Oh God, yeah.
The A6000 is a good little camera too.
I'm not even a big fan of APS-C, but if you're going full frame, for me, Lumix S5X or Lumix S5 Mark II X, which is a mouthful, but it's $2,200. It's essentially what I'm filming myself on right now. It's the Panasonic Lumix S1H, which is a Netflix-approved cinema camera and a little bit smaller of a body. I would go with that.
Dude, we're talking budget here.
How budget are you going?
I mean, well, here's the thing is like, let's say you're just getting started out. Like, I don't think that you should invest all of your money into something that crazy expensive. I think that you should try to find a camera that's serviceable and then also be able to invest your money elsewhere. I mean, I guess I probably should have given you a budget.
Give me a budget.
All right. Let's say you've got $5,000. Let's say you've got $5,000 to get started. What are you doing?
Yeah, then I would go. Yeah, then that would fit within my budget. And what are we?
Okay.
What are we shooting? Real estate?
What we do now. Real estate, commercial, stuff like that.
Okay. Oh, Well, then, yeah, I still would probably go in the direction because I could fit all this in for $5,000. And honestly, you could get a little bit cheaper if you went with like the original S5 or something like that. But if we're going budget and I want to get the absolute highest quality, I'm going S5 Mark IIX, $2,200. You need an adapter, which is from Sigma, which is $100. So $2,300 all in for the camera. You've got a killer camera. At that point, I would go for the cheapest 50 millimeter Canon lens that would go onto that adapter. So I think that's a nifty 50, about $100. So you get a 50 millimeter 1.8 there. I honestly would try and keep my same setup with the Laowa because I think that gives me so much flexibility in terms of a 12 millimeter. I don't want any fisheye stuff. That's $800. So now we're at $3,100. Gives me room to get my drone if you want to do both vertical and horizontal acquisition. DJI Mini 4 Pro, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I don't think that anybody, unless you're doing like specifically just drone services, needs anything other than the Mini 4 Pro.
Yeah, Mini 4 Pro would get you there. And then how much do those run now? Mini 4 Pros?
You're looking like probably $750, $750 for just the drone.
All right, then I'm balling on a budget here. I've still got $1,000 left over. With that $1,000 left over, I'd sit there and go the Rode or DJI. You get to pick whichever one you want because they're kind of equal. I would do like a mic kit like that. And what am I missing here? Probably the diffuser,
gimbal, right? Like
yeah,
gimbal, maybe
you would need a gimbal if you're doing gimbal. I've gone down crane, like the Zhiyun crane, and I've also done Ronin. They're indistinguishable to me. Honestly, my Ronin is more of a pain to me than my crane was because I have to calibrate it every time I turn it on. So yeah, I'd probably, sorry, I just bumped the mic there for you guys listening, but I'd probably go with the crane and diffuser, and I'd roll with it like that.
I think that I'm pretty much on board with everything that you said, and I think that if you want to continue to save even more money, we've gotten so great with these cameras to the point where now other cameras that you can find used are still very good. I mean, this isn't even used, but I'm seeing a Sony A7 II on B&H's website for $1,000, brand new. This also comes with a 28 to 70 millimeter lens, so Sony A7 II with a 20 to 70 for $1,000 on B&H's website, which is insane. Used gear, of course, like I'd mentioned, this Sony A6000 is $280. You can go and pick up the original DJI microphones, right? The DJI Mic, you don't have to spend money on the second version. Like there is a lot of really good gear out there for cheap, and I think that if you're somebody looking to get into it, you don't need to go down the rabbit hole of, trying to buy the absolute best gear, but get your bases covered. Get what you think you're going to need. Try to figure out, what your budget is and what you're willing to spend and what the image quality and what the convenience features that are important to you, and figure out your system. I think you're good to go. It's actually surprising me how cheap some of these cameras are.
It does get cheap, but you also got to look at the long run in terms of, because when I did business coaching, some of these people wanted to get into it and had never done anything before. And there's kind of the argument of like, okay, well, what camera can I start with for the first 6 months and then switch over to a different camera later on if I need to? But cameras are getting so powerful at this point that for not that much more money, you can just get something that's way more future proof like that. Was that my most budget breakdown that I could give? Probably not. But for me, in terms of dollar bang for buck, S5 II Mark X, if you can get $2,200, if you can swing that, like you're going to be able to use that camera for a long time. 6K 30 isn't going anywhere. Like you've got plenty.
My mom has always said, you buy it cheap, you buy it twice, which is true, right? I mean, you buy something cheap, you're going to end up wanting to buy something different. But another thing that I will rebuttal with here is that if you buy a piece of gear and then you end up upgrading, you've always got a B cam. So like if you have a situation where you want to have a second frame, you can always throw the camera off to the side, start recording on that. You can also use it as a backup in case something happens to your main camera. So there's always options like that. I mean, for example, I have my Sony A7 III that I was shooting on. I then upgraded to the A1, but my A7 III still sits around in case I need to do like a top down where I am here inside of the studio, so I can do 2 angles at once, or I can use it as like a B cam, or just because it seems to be able to record forever and not overheat. If I need to do longer recording sessions, I can lean on that as well. So it's always good to have backup gear as well. Look, I think we've exhausted the gear conversation. Just know that when it comes down to finding gear, you don't have to get too held up on it. All right, Cameron, we're approaching an hour here, which is fine. I think that we've still got some stuff to cover here, some stuff that's important, like clientele. So talk to the people. How were you able to pick up your first clients when it came to starting your business?
Ooh, that's a good old loaded question. So
how's it loaded?
Because there are... there's different kind of avenues. Like I can go through what I specifically did versus what I would recommend other people do. My biggest thing is cold calling. I just didn't enjoy cold calling. Like that wasn't what I like doing.
I'm not a salesman, and just like you, I did not enjoy emailing somebody saying, "Hey, I see your listing on 123 Main Street, and I see that you don't have professional photography. I would love to do photos for you."
Yeah. I always like to put myself in a position where, so what I ended up doing, and if you're trying to get into real estate, this is like my secret code, is real estate agents have to get continuing education once a year through a real estate school. They also have monthly meetings at their office where typically it's a sales meeting that you can come in and provide breakfast and be able to speak to their agents. And depending on the size of the office, if it's 80 agents, I mean, that's a great return on investment for an $80 to $100 breakfast that you provide for them. So in the beginning, what I did is I went into a real estate school. I bought out the exclusive rights to it. So I bought out, you can just pay per class if you want. And I went in and I pitched all these agents. But what that did is it put me more in a position of power where they were the one to call me. And so I would go in, I would do my whole presentation. At the time, I was like taking off the drone in the front of the room and showing them it kind of flying it around me and landing it in my hand. Like I had this thing down to a Wolf of Wall Street style presentation, like running down the aisles, like making a whole show and a dance out of it. And I had the presenter there that was really, really well known. His name was Bill Gallagher. And so he's sitting there singing my praises, talking about how I'm the best. I would sit there and not only just tell them what we do, but I also would teach them about, drone laws, what they're allowed to do, giving them advice for what to do on their social media. So they kind of saw me as the expert because not only am I giving them valuable pieces of information, but I'm also sitting in a real estate school, literally teaching them. So it just puts you in a position of authority. So that by that point, I would leave. I would hand out all my business cards individually, shake hands with every single person, say, I'd love to work with you soon. And I'd leave and my phone would be blown up. And I did that for multiple years. I would go to, the local real estate agent offices and give those presentations and provide breakfast and talk to them. And, I just wasn't salesy about it. And I think that's what was kind of comforting for them, that I would go in and just almost do a Q&A. Like I would provide breakfast and just say like, hey, like, what questions can I answer for you guys of photography, videography? And I would ask them questions too of like, what's been your biggest pain point with your current photographer, videographer? Somebody would raise their hand and say turnaround time. It takes them, 3 or 4 days. I'd be like, well, we do it in a day. And I would just kind of just answer the questions. People would ask me, how close to an airport can you fly? They would ask like all different kinds of questions. And by the time you get done doing a Q&A in front of that many people, if you have the presentation skills to be able to do that, or you're comfortable speaking to that amount of people, you're just seen as an expert. So I would always go that route of trying to find some sort of position where you present, they listen, and they reach out to you, as opposed to what I did in the first 2 weeks of doing this is I would go to car dealerships and say, can I have 60 seconds of your time to show you a video I did recently and maybe we can work together? Because now you're so far beneath them and it's real tough.
Yep. Yeah. So I love that. And so you're saying that what you did is you almost were doing the cold calling in the beginning, and then you instead provided some worth to these people, and then they were coming to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that that's great. I think that that's exactly what I would recommend. I'll kind of pivot here, and I'll maybe go down the construction path, which is not easy. So for me, with real estate, you kind of have these smaller clients. It's very volume based, whereas construction, it's a little bit harder to get into. I think that with construction, a lot of these companies might actually have their own drone. They might have their own operator that is flying the drone within their company, but usually the quality is not really up to par. So what I did originally, Cameron, kind of in your vein, is I'd go around, and whenever I'd see a sign outside of a construction site, I would email that construction company. And it was always like an awkward, like, hey, I see that you have a new project on this street. I would love to come by and photograph it for you. And then I'd give them the benefits of photography, because that's the thing. It's like, I didn't think that they needed photography, although I wanted to do it. And so I had to list the benefits out to them. Like, did you know that if I do photography of your project, it'll document the progress. You'll be able to share it with your client. You'll be able to share it with investors, yada, 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 yada. So, I actually think that what I'd recommend doing is, through social media, primarily LinkedIn, provide value to construction companies by creating content, and also share the work that you've done. So in the beginning, kind of like my experience with construction companies, my dad is an architect and builder. So at the very beginning, I've had a love of construction my entire life. But then I thought to myself, like, how can I provide something to these construction companies that's of worth? How can I continue to find business? Kind of picked my dad's brain. And really the main thing was trying to get your foot in the door with somebody, and then your your business spreads through word of mouth. That is the number one thing. If you can get in good with one company and if they can refer you out, your name will spread like wildfire. And what's great about these construction sites is there's a lot of subcontractors on that job, which is what you are, right? You're a subcontractor going onto the job. Well, wouldn't it be great if when you showed up and you're doing the photos of, let's say, a home that's being built, the plumbing company reaches out to you, the tile company reaches out to you, the landscapers reach out to you. There's so many people to work with directly on that one project, and if you can work with them and then they can share your info with their sphere, with their people that they work with, really the possibilities are endless from there. The way that I've actually gotten a lot of other construction clients as well is almost taking initiative and going out and doing something on my own without any idea of getting paid, without any expectation of getting paid. So I'll give you a recent example of the 95 bridge collapsing. This is something that was newsworthy. Of course, it was shared amongst all the news outlets in my area. I went out there, I did the photo and video of the actual bridge collapse, documented it, shared it on Instagram. And don't you know, the company that got the job to actually do the demolition of the bridge and build a new bridge called me. I was able to document the progress of the bridge over the course of the entire year. And then I also was able to get another job with them down in South Philly where they're building a new park that goes over the highway. And that's going to be another 2 to 3 year project. So it's just taking that initiative, being able to be easy to work with, being able to be flexible, and then also understanding that your business and your name will spread throughout their network is probably, in my opinion, one of the biggest cheat codes.
Yeah. No, first of all, I like that a lot. The providing value thing, the giving first. There's so, and this is where I said it was a loaded question. There's so many different ways to go about it. I like that tactic of if you do something for one company, for example. So let's just say we work with a dentist office right now. Once we got that dentist office, which has their own reputation, you can kind of attach yourself to that reputation. So if I wanted to do, make more money and get more dentist office, I start reaching out and saying, hey, just, check out what we did recently for this dentist office, which is a competitor of theirs. And I share a really high quality video and just be like, hey, we're working with them. We'd love to work with you too, because we're learning more about the industry. And this is something we really enjoy. And that goes a long way. Other thing too, I learned this recently, and I think this lands well. With social media, I think people go too quickly in terms of trying to get the clients. So let's say that you wanted Pike, who's the home builder that we work with, and you just follow them on Instagram, DM them the first day and be like, hey, are you looking for a photographer or videographer? Check out my website. That doesn't do much. They get cold called all the time. But when you start to develop a relationship, because that's what you're trying to do with the client. I've had Pike as a relationship for a long time. You start slow. So you sit there. If I wanted to go get into plastic surgeons, for example, and working with plastic surgeon companies, I would go follow them on Instagram. I would like all their stuff. I would comment on all their stuff. I would DM them when they do a story and just say, hey, this looks great. You're killing it. And slowly start to build out the relationship. And then after a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long is appropriate, slowly start to slide it in and just say hey, can I come by and shoot a little promo for you? I'll do it for free. I've got time on Wednesday. And slowly start to work it in, as opposed to just going right at it and saying, hey, can I have your business? Hey, can I have this? The best analogy I can give, me personally, if you wanted to borrow $20 from me and your life depended on this, would you just DM me and say, hey, can I have $20? No, you would sit there and harbor a relationship and text me and compliment my work and do all these different things and really butter me up a little bit until you get to the point of wanting to borrow that $20. And hopefully by that time you've buttered me enough where it happens. The very, very last thing, this is just an easy tip. If you already have clients, and I'm stealing this a little bit from Alex Ramosi. I did this for the longest time, but he said this recently, and I like the way that he said it, that once you get done and you give them the project, that's the happiest they're going to be. You tell them, call them, whatever their happiest point is, whether you're leaving the shoot, you deliver it, you say, hey, you were awesome to work with. What are 3 other friends that you have that are also awesome to work with or are awesome like you? And kind of phrase it in that kind of playful, funny way like that. Don't say, do you have 3 friends? Say, what 3 friends do you have? Because if they say, that's just going to really put them on the spot, and typically they're going to answer more. And then you now have a hot lead that you can go contact those people and say, hey, just worked with Jamie over here. He gave me your contact information and said maybe you'd be interested in this too. And then share the project with Jamie in it. And now that's so much more of a warm lead than had you cold called these people and never had any sort of connection to them.
That's a great idea. And that's something that I've actually never thought about doing, and something that I am probably going to put into my business. Growing your business, whether you're a single person like myself or whether you have a company like Cameron, you've got to, kind of get in that growth mode. You've got to understand, like, how can I take my initial set of clients and grow it from there? Cameron, I think that you've recently been doing a lot of social, right? You've been trying to grow the social media presence.
Yes, we have. Yeah, it's
So
more so for retention than client acquisition, because that's another thing to focus on. Is everyone likes to focus on the getting the clients, but it's also retaining them, and that's
I do have that written down here.
Okay,
So let's
we'll
talk
hop
about
to that.
retaining clients.
Okay.
Let's talk about retaining clients, because I think a lot of people will say, how do I drum up business? How do I get clients? But it's like, well, once you have that person, how do you keep them? I think that this kind of loops back to what we discussed about making them happy and just being easy to work with. Like, if you're easy to work with, they're going to continue to call you, right? It doesn't matter if you have this really slick way to deliver files where it's easy, they can go and download them. It doesn't matter if it's really easy to book with you. Just generally being easy to work with is going to definitely help you retain clients. But I would say also just continuing to be creative, right? Like being able to almost be like their Swiss Army knife, to where they say, hey, I see this brand new trend on Instagram. How can we take it to the next level? And you're able to create a piece of content that follows that trend, helps them stand out, and ultimately helps them gain business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So client retention is like overlooked for me. Not for me, but I see a lot of people overlooking that. So I'm going to get real technical here. In the business, there's LTV, which is lifetime value of a client. And you can do simple math on this if you want. If you take the amount of money you made in the last 12 months and then divide it by the amount of clients that you had, that's your LTV. That's the average of what each person will pay you if they ever get into bed with doing business with you. And there's only 3 ways that number can go up. It is client acquisition, not your total sales, essentially, is getting more clients, retaining those clients, or increasing your pricing. And so increasing pricing isn't really an option for a lot of people because they're scared they're going to piss off their current clients. Getting more clients typically has way more friction with it than doing client retention. And so if you have these clients stay on longer, let's say that in that LTV, typically your clients churn out at 3 months, 4 months in, and you can get them to stay for 7 months, 8 months, 9 months and not convert or not go to somebody else, you're going to make a lot more money. And so you can think of it like this. If you got 10 clients a month, every single month, and never lost one, think about what happens 5 years from now of how many clients you have because you're retaining them, as opposed to having this churn thing where you lose 10, then gain 10, then lose 10, then gain 10, and have to constantly educate new people. So I've tried to invest more into retention on my side. And we're doing that with social media, and we're even getting to the point of I'm hiring a dedicated full-time salary person just to reach out to them and make them feel nurtured, even when they're not doing shoots with us. So we're getting a CRM. We're learning when their birthdays are. We're tracking all of their properties to see when they go under contract, when things are sold. We're sending them, little small packages just saying, congratulations on your newest listing. We're glad we could be a part of it. Like all these things that really just create an unrivaled experience that they're going to want to continue to use us. And then I don't really need to worry about the client acquisition part because my retention is going to be so good that we're growing naturally, like you said, by word of mouth, that I don't need to put all this energy into doing the cold calling, the thing that I hate, when I could just do the retention aspect. That was really convoluted.
I'm learning stuff just sitting here talking to you, Cam.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think that that's an amazing idea of trying to retain clients. And so in this method, are you also trying to figure out how you can, this sounds really scummy, but are you trying to figure out like how can you gain more of their business? Like how can you make more money off of the single client? Is that something that you're also factoring in?
Yeah. So when I very, very, very first started this, and you guys can look this up, there's a TED Talk by Simon Sinek called The Golden Circle or The Golden Rule. And it basically means that if you create, a mission statement that you stand by. So with us, it is delivering the most seamless, high quality product with the easiest customer service. Like it makes sense for us to go into other fields. So if we made our mission statement of like just around real estate, then it's really weird for us to start offering weddings. But because we are storytellers, that's what our mission statement is. We can do weddings, we can do real estate, we can do construction, we can do all of these different things. And so now like, to kind of get a client that's in real estate and start to say, hey, we should get active on social. Hey, we should go into YouTube content. We should go into long form. Like we can kind of pitch those things to them. And it just makes sense because of how high quality of a brand that how quality of a relationship that we've developed with them, of the trust, of the, quick turnaround times, the constant nurturing. Like they want to continue doing as much business with us as possible because we've just shown to be like a great vendor and a great partner for them.
Sure. Kind of switching gears here and getting back to growth, I almost think that like the traditional portfolio is dead. I mean, of course, you have to have a spot where some of your best work is shown, and kind of like a spot where if someone says, hey, do you have any examples of like twilight photography you've done? You can send it to them. Or, hey, do you have any examples of some headshots done? You can send it to them, whether you have like a little Dropbox link of examples or something. But I think that a really great way to kind of grow your business and to kind of showcase what you can do is what I said earlier about LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever you're going to be doing. Post something and say like, hey, I just did this video for ABC Dental. It was great working with them. Maybe give them a little bit of a plug saying, hey, they have a really great office. If you're looking for, a new dentist, why don't you try checking them out? But then you also include something about, hey, if you're looking for something similar to this, be sure to reach out to us and we'd be happy to discuss how we can help you with your video needs. And I guarantee you're going to get people that are in that same field or fields that are related to it, whether it be a dentist, doctor, whatever, that are going to reach out to you and say, hey, I saw your video that you did for ABC Dental and I really would like something similar, which sounds like is what happened to you with Pike, right?
Yeah. We're experimenting more with social now, because social for me, the only thing that I've really gotten a lot of business from when it comes from social is other people posting our content. But me posting the content, we've only been doing that. I've been doing this for 7 years now. I've only been doing social media probably for 8 months of like uploading to our site, doing educational content, posting our final products, things like that. I always lean on the side. And if you're starting this would be my recommendation. If you're a great speaker, like if you're somebody that can get on a phone call with somebody and make them feel heard, and you get off phone calls and just, or like, I killed that, then you're great. You're at that starting point. If you're not, start training that. Go to networking events, go to everything that you can. I don't care. Go get Tinder and go on dates and figure out how to talk and how to feel comfortable talking. Get to a place where you're good at speaking and asking questions and making people really invested in talking to you. And then from there, like when it comes to your portfolio thing, I so much rather, instead of just having a portfolio online that they go look at, getting on a call with them and saying, all right, well, tell me about the property. Oh man, that sounds beautiful. That sounds like something I'd want to shoot. Well, here's what I'm going to do. You said this is what, 2.4 million? Let me send you a couple of examples that are at 2.4 million that are also on the lake, like you said this one is. And I'm going to get you some handcrafted examples here so you can see exactly what you're going to get. That might be a benefit with us because we've done so many that we have such a large portfolio to do. But yeah, I would much rather. And then the even best thing is when you haven't done it before. Like if that dentist office sat there and said, like, let's say we were just doing online portfolios, I haven't done any dentist work. So they're going to look at it, maybe be turned off and go to a competitor. But because I got them on the phone, I was like, you know what? They were telling me about their smile transformations and the fact that when they look in the mirror for the first time after getting veneers, that emotional reaction, I sat there and related it to a first look at a wedding. And I was like, I can send you some examples of how we capture that moment, the audio, everything we do with it. And I gave them sort of that analogy of how it's going to fit. And now I landed a client with zero portfolio, zero background in that industry because I was on the phone and was able to speak and make them feel heard.
That's awesome. Do you have anything else you want to touch on client-based? Is there anything else in your mind bouncing around?
Man, no, I don't think so. This is where questions come in. If you guys are listening to this right now and you guys are thinking, I wish they would have touched on this topic, like we're so excited to answer questions and really be like direct value. So ask the questions, but no, we can move on.
Yeah, please. I mean, look, for me, I guess my closing statement is like my clients are my friends. I treat them like my friends, and like just kind of having that direct, relationship with them really does, in my opinion, solidify me as somebody that they want to continue to use. So like you said, client retention is huge. And if they know what to expect from me and if they just continue to reach out to me, it's great, because sometimes I'll have somebody that is a first-time client and my conversation with them for one project is, legitimately 4 or 5 back and forths, whereas there's other clients I work with that go, hey, 123 Main Street next Monday. I go, yeah, see you there. So just like you had mentioned, like they know what to expect. It's very easy to work with retaining clients. Okay, probably the next piece of the puzzle is pricing. I think you're a very interesting case here, and I actually follow suit that I've never raised my prices, and I know that you have never raised your prices either. And do you think that that's because you're at a sweet spot where you're like, I'm making a good amount of money for what I do and I don't see the need to raise prices? Like, what's your logic behind that?
I have like streamlined the process. So in the beginning, and I'll just say my prices. We do everything flat rate pricing. So photography for a home is $250, videography is $375. Both of them together is $500. That was my pricing from day one. And you got to imagine day one, I'm shooting it, I'm editing it. It has taken me way longer to shoot, way longer to edit. And so as time has gone on and I've streamlined the process, and our editing is now, we have an in-house editor, like all these different aspects that have streamlined it, I don't see the need to raise it, because my dollar per hour has just gotten better as time has gone on. And then that consistency too, there is a piece of it that I'm scared to raise my prices because I don't want to piss people off. But sure. I'm doing fine. I would much rather focus on, if I need more money, if I want to bring in more business, than just creating the highest quality product that more people are going to want to do it. Because again, the dollar per hour is what I'm looking at, and that's solid. I mean, we can pump out a photo video, which is $500. I can shoot that in an hour or less, and then I pay 20% to editing, essentially, of that cost. And so I'm netting over $400 an hour whenever I'm shooting a home. And you know, our videographers, I won't go too granular with it, but everyone is making great dollar per hour in the company, and I don't need to raise that. In terms of, so ask that question one more time, just how I got into my pricing, or why I haven't raised it.
Yeah, well, I guess like you obviously established your pricing, and I guess the biggest thing was like, how did you think that was like a good amount to charge, and then also why have you not raised it? Like, what is there any reason why you haven't raised it after all these years? Yeah,
okay. So the reason that I got into that pricing, and we have raised prices on like our commercial side of things, and kind of more like, you know, not our flat rate pricing, not our like general structured pricing. I would say, look at when you're looking to charge, like if you're sitting here and you are at square one, you don't know what to charge a company. It's really good to learn about the company and kind of learn about their finances as to how many units they're going to have to sell to pay off this video, or how many clients they're going to have to bring on. So working with real estate is a really easy one, because you can pretty much know what the agent's going to be making on this. So if you're filming $1 million home, they're making 3% commission, which sometimes can be 2.5% or whatever. They're making $30,000 on that. So it's not out of left field for me to ask for $500 to do one of the most important aspects, which is marketing it, all the photo, all the video, everything like that. And I also look at a good like middle point. So let's say you're working with a company, or you're looking at a company to work with. Look at what would make sense for them. Look at the minimum of what you would actually do it for, and then meet in the middle. So both of you guys are given a little bit of a sacrifice here, or I guess meeting in the middle on it. So could I charge $1,000, $2,000 for a home, for a $2 million, $3 million home or something like that? I could, but honestly, it's not that much more work for me to just do it for the $500. I mean, it's the same amount of work if I'm filming a $2 million home as it is a $700,000 home. And so they just feel like they're getting a way bigger deal. And then you can start offering add-ons, and that's where like more money comes in, that if they want to add Twilight to it, if they want to add the commercial stuff, then you can just go from there. But just finding something that you're not going to regret. Like if I sat here and made my pricing $200 for a photo video shoot, like I'm going to be grinding my ass off for not that much money.
Absolutely.
And the last aspect is if you look at it long term. So for me, photo video, $500, I can fit 6 of those in a day. That's $3,000 a day, 365 days in the year. If I was by myself, could make $1 million a year doing this, working every single day. Obviously there's weather and things like that would count, but I'm happy with that. Like I don't need to sit here and have some crazy $800 per hour rate where I'm making millions and millions of dollars, because it's going to be a lot harder to convince people to use it. So finding something that you can commit to and know that you can stand next to. I see a lot of people getting in the industry where they charge so little that they are going to have that uncomfortable conversation of raising prices later. I'll take weddings, for example. People that charge $1,000 or $1,500 to do a wedding, there's only 52 of those you can do in a year. Can you really, for the rest of your life, make $50,000 a year or $60,000 a year? Yeah. Probably not. And so you're going to have to do something. But with me, with where I'm at, and the reason I haven't changed it is my dollar per hour is so good right now, I can make $1 million a year on my own without even having employees. I don't need to raise it.
Sure. And it also comes down to demand, right? So if you price yourself too high, there's not going to be that demand to actually make that amount of money. Your phone's not going to ring to get business. So I think it's a real like sweet spot. You've got to try to figure out, what it's worth for you to do it, and also what it's worth for them to hire you. And if you can find that middle ground, like you mentioned, you're going to fill up your calendar. Now, for me personally, I'm in a pretty unique situation because I do the YouTube thing, which of course brings in money. So I've got social media that does, we do sponsorships and just things here on the channel that of course generate revenue. So for me, like it's kind of like one business pulls on the other. Of course, this business, like YouTube and social media, is kind of like, I'd say, my side hustle, because it doesn't make as much money as going out and shooting during the day would. But what's great about it it is, if I do have a cancellation or if I do have a shoot where I charge a little bit less money, I feel like I can make up for it with that side hustle that I have, which is YouTube, which is doing social media. I would say that for me, I do not have set prices for anything except for real estate. So for my photography and videography, of course, the size of the home, generally how much time it's going to take you to photograph these places. So being able to have set pricing there is easy. But for any of my video content that is outside of real estate, it's pretty much a custom quote. Do you deal with custom quotes for most of your video stuff, or do you have like set prices for your video stuff?
All the time. I give them a rough range. So mine is $1,500 per minute of completed footage is like the rough range of what they could expect for a custom commercial. And I just tell them like, chew on that. If that sounds like it's within your range, let's set up a call and go more granular with it and start to figure out all the details. But it's going to be somewhat in that range. A 2-minute commercial for $3,000, et cetera. And that's just more so it weans out the people that are wanting a commercial for $200.
Sure. So, I look at it from a social media aspect because now that's everything. Like everybody's just looking for social media videos. And so, when it comes down to it, if somebody just wants to sit there and talk to the camera and knock out a couple of videos, that's way different than saying, hey, I've got an idea where I want to go to 7 different restaurants in the city and showcase, the best cocktails that you can find to try and get more business in Fishtown. And it's like, well, those are 2 completely different types of videos that are going to take way different time, a way different amount of time to complete. So that's why I keep everything custom, because it's like somebody could come to you and say, hey, I've got a really cool video idea, and they want to sit down in front of a camera for 5 minutes, or they want to spend half the day jumping around to multiple spots. So that's why I keep things custom, and why, just like you said, I give them a price range based on what they want, because video is just so different and so granular. Like you can't actually pin it down. Now, do you ever think that there's going to be a time in your life where you raise your prices ever?
Yeah, for that base offering, I really don't know. I've thought about it recently just because not even for my pay, it's more so for my videographer's pay to get them paid higher. And it would, any money that I would raise by would go directly to the videographers. But if I did, I would go about it really specifically. I would only do it for new clients coming in. I would start to experiment with it and basically tell them that on the phone and be willing to go back to my original price if it was too high. And that's a piece of advice that I was going to give anyway. So start high. Always start high. I don't know why people like to start low. I'm going to give my weddings, for example. I originally, when I first started, was doing weddings for $2,000. Then I went to $3,000. Then I went to $5,000. Then I went to $7,000. And now I'm at $10,000. And so for $10,000, that's like our wedding flat rate. Everything's included. It's the full Monty. We only take on a certain amount per year. And so the way that we structure that out now is they're $10,000. They're not cheap. We only do a certain amount a year that we almost interview you to see if we want to take it on. So now there's a limited kind of quantity thing going on, scarcity, where they want to be selected for this. And then the final thing is once I get them on the phone, I say $10,000. And they, you start to feel it, that they aren't willing to do that. You sit there and say, hey, like, this is something that I'd be really excited about doing. What were you looking at? Like, what was your budget? And they'll say $7,500 or $7,000 or even $5,000 or whatever it is. Now you just have their budget in your hand and you can just decide if you want to do it or not. Because you can always go backwards. You can't really go forwards with pricing. So there's been multiple times I've told a client $10,000, $8,000, whatever it is. They say, hey, we really only had $6,000 set aside for this. And genuinely, I probably would have done it for $4,000. But because I started high, I sit here now, I know their budget. They're walking away from the first call like, man, what a guy. Like sitting here and bringing down his prices for me. I mean, he must be really excited about this project, but it's just because I started high. Flat rate is what gets people in the door. That's not to get too technical again, like I did with the LTV thing. But if you can calculate out what your customer acquisition cost is, so all the money you put into marketing and then divide it by the amount of clients you get back, I think that's the calculation there. Maybe I got that wrong. But your customer acquisition cost, how much money it takes for you to get each client. For me, if my prices are low enough and our offering is good enough to get more people in the door, to start with even just our bare bones package of $250, I'm being paid $250 to almost have the introduction to them, to then go out and be with them on site, deliver them a hell of a product and sit there and say, hey, why didn't you get video done on this one? Hey, for the next one, let's do 10% off on that. You got to try it. I think you're going to like it. Why don't we do reels? Why don't we do commercials? Why don't we redo your website? Like all of these different things. So having like a really attractive kind of like lower offering to get people in the door is great. This might be wrong, but I almost think this is a thing. Like with restaurants, really nice restaurants, they always have a bar that's a separate seating area. I think that's kind of the same concept of like, can you just go in and pay for a $120 meal? Probably not, but the bar gets you in the door. And by the time you get there and get a little bit of liquor in you might just say, hey, I want a steak and I'll pay the money for it. And so I kind of see it as that same kind of feel to it of just getting them in the door. They now are the warmest lead possible because they're literally paying you, and you can start to kind of give that expertise now that you're with them.
Yeah, dude, that's actually a very good analogy, which is, I didn't know where you're going with it, but I think that it holds up. Let's really quickly talk about free work. So for me, like in the beginning, I started out by just doing free work. Like that was all I did. Like I was trying to get experience. I was trying to find people to work with. I was, doing stuff on my own, again, taking initiative. And it still kind of reigns true. Like I just mentioned, I went out and I did the bridge. I didn't expect to get paid by anybody, yet I landed one of my best clients that I work with on a consistent basis. And so doing things for free, I think in the beginning is almost a necessity. Like it's something you have to do to kind of get a feel for different industries, get a feel for what you want, maybe get your name out there. It is going to kind of suck to like waste your time going and doing something and not getting paid for it. But it really is almost like a rite of passage in order to figure out what it is that you actually want to do. And also, again, just kind of taking that initiative and doing things that, you might not be getting paid your full rate for in order to, like Cameron said, get in the door, whether you give them some sort of discount, can really be huge. So what is your idea on like, free business? I think that where we're at right now, doing business for free is probably off the table, but do you think it's a good way to get started?
Absolutely. But my easiest rule of thumb, that's just the quickest one sentence. If somebody's telling you to do it for free, don't do it. You should be the one to offer it. If someone's coming to you and saying, this is great exposure for you and all the different stuff, they're a cheap ass. And that's been the reality for every single person that's ever told me, hey, if you knock this one out of the park, you just wait. I've got all these shoots. I've got all this business. If they had all that business, they'd be willing to pay you. They have money. And they clearly don't. So I would do it. And like, I'll give an example. Like, think of something that you want to do. Like for me, like if a gun company came to me that was wanting to promote like their guns and shooting guns, that's a
demonetized.
Demonetized. Yeah. Oh, can I even say the word gun on YouTube? Is that a problem?
I think you can. I've got no idea.
Okay, whatever it is, a cool company. They are doing something. Like I would do that stuff for free now, like to get myself in the door. Because from there, like I'm going to enjoy it. Like I'm going to have fun doing it. But if somebody's telling me to do some boring shoot that I'm going to hate editing and I'm going to hate shooting it, like I'm not doing that for free. And in the beginning it was kind of the same way.
You might raise your prices for that.
Yeah, I would raise my prices up. So I would be particular about the thing you're doing and doing it for free because you really would enjoy doing it and it would give you a good experience. The second thing is, instead of going like thinking about it as just a you to client relationship of offering things for free, going to other people that are more experienced. Like if somebody came to me, for example, and said, hey, I want to get into the space. Can I come second shoot for you for free? Or can I come shadow you for free? Or something along those lines. Like you can get experience, you can get content, you can get a bunch of different stuff, and you can sit there and ask the guy questions or ask the girl questions about their industry, what they like. I've had multiple people shadow me, and I feel like I give good advice, hopefully, because we're doing a podcast. Hopefully I give good advice. So I would sit there and give them advice, and I feel like that shaved some time off of their learning experience. So offer work for free. Don't do it for free if they're telling you to do it for free because they're probably BSing you. And really just look at the long term of it as well as to, is it going to make sense to do this for free? Like, is it a small enough thing? Don't go do a $10,000 commercial that's going to take you 3 weeks straight for free. Like get in with something cheap, get in with something easy.
Nice. Now, kind of looping back to what we were talking about in the beginning, which was booking, and kind of also talking about like payment collection, to get a little bit like granular here, let's discuss software that you use, ideas that you follow. Like what is, I guess, let's say my name is Joe Smith and I want to schedule a photo shoot with you. Walk me through your entire workflow, your pipeline from start to finish. Like, how can I book a shoot with you? What can I expect? Not really when you show up, because we've been talking about that a lot. I mean, of course, you want to be easy to work with, deliver good product, but like when it comes down to file delivery and when it comes down to payment, like how does your whole system work?
Okay. I use so for delivery, I use third party. So I will do Dropbox. That's like my main method of delivery. There's some competition that I know have their own like site that they do and own pages and things. I just like Dropbox better. It doesn't go down. It's not going to have technical issues. It's just easier. Yep. So file delivery is always going to be Dropbox. We also deliver for like real estate films, for example. We pre-upload it to YouTube for them so that way they can share it. We just do that on our own account. So they have a YouTube link they can send to their friends or agents or whoever. We deliver Vimeo, which is our unbranded link for MLS, which is a requirement for real estate. You might not need to do that if you're in other industries, but that's like file delivery every single time. It's YouTube, Vimeo, Dropbox, every single time. In terms of payment collection and how we do everything on that end, so we do DocuSign, and we have that hooked up with our credit card processing company, which is authorized.net. That's like our merchant account that we use. So it's one of the highest quality, like safest, most secure. We had to go through like a 3-week application process to get on with them. So now we can accept credit cards. We link that up through our DocuSign account. So Billy, if you called in and booked a shoot, it would just say like, hey, we're going to shoot a DocuSign over to your email address. Just give that a sign. They'll go on there, sign the contract, and at the end of it, it takes payment seamlessly. We do contracts for every single shoot. I don't know if you've been sued, Billy. We have been sued a couple of times or been threatened to be sued. Contracts are just something that's always going to take all the guesswork out of it. You're going to protect yourself on every single shoot you go on, no matter what happens, whether you crash a drone, whether anything that happens. Contracts are just going to help you a lot with that. And you don't feel like you need it until you feel like you need it, until somebody trips over your light stand, until something like that even isn't your fault in the slightest. We were threatened to be sued, had an attorney reach out to us because we got to a shoot one time. The homeowner said, my daughter, who was 70 years old, this was a very old man, said she used to shoot with film and she'd turn all the lights off. And so I want to shoot my home with all the lights off. And this is a cave of a home. There was like no light in there at all. And I was telling like the agent, I was like, I really would not recommend doing this. It's not going to be good. And they're like, just do it. Just do it. Don't use any lights. Don't use anything. Just do it the way he wants to do it because he's very emotional about this or very passionate about it. Did it. I actually had surgery the next day to get my wisdom teeth out, and I woke up out of surgery to letters coming in basically saying that I was being sued for like the hindrance of the sale of their home, that my content was so bad that, and I uploaded it to YouTube, like I said, and so they said the fact that I shot it, put it on YouTube, that it hindered their home sale, and it was BS.
Who was the one suing you? Was it the homeowner?
The homeowner, not even the agent. The agent was on my side and was like, I don't know what's going on, but he's like, this is not the quality that my daughter would have done back in the day. And I'm like, yeah, your daughter didn't do real estate photography. Your daughter probably did film with like models and stuff. So he was just out of the loop. But he also, there's just people out there that just like to sue people over the drop of a hat. I mean, we've been threatened multiple times, and we have attorneys. We just get them involved. I've never lost a lawsuit. I've never gone to court because typically it just gets settled by the time we get there. And I've never been in the wrong with it because of our contracts every single time. We've had non-refundable deposits be argued where somebody's done a non-refundable deposit and then just changed their mind and said, I don't want to do it anymore. And then whenever we talk about that, they say, you can't take that money. They send an attorney over and we get it worked out. So contracts all day.
That's awesome. Yeah. So my pipeline is, text, call, whatever. Somebody can book a shoot with me by just directly reaching out to me. I do have an online booking through Squarespace, which I keep private and just send to specific people, really just to kind of gauge schedule, which brings up the question of being able to see someone's schedule and calculate how much money that they make, which with the platform that I use, have you heard of Acuity scheduling?
I've never even looked into it, no.
So Acuity scheduling is offered through Squarespace. So directly on my Squarespace site, I have a special page where somebody can go and book a shoot with me. And what's great about it is, when they go to book something with you, they basically choose what they want, and then they can see not even like specific time slots, but just general availability during the day. So if I have something in my calendar, it's going to automatically add 15 minutes of padding on the front and the back. And then it's going to add 15 minutes of padding onto the other one, which kind of gives me like at least 30 minutes to travel in between spaces or in between places that I'm shooting. And it doesn't like give away your direct availability. So I know that some people have that issue with Calendly. You'd be able to go into Calendly and you could see like people's schedule and say, wow, they are not very busy this week. Like, do I even want to work with them? Like, do they even do a lot of business? So I know exactly what you mean, but Acuity has been really good for me. And it's really not even my main booking system. Really, it's like the reason I have it in place is like I do drone training for a company. So when I'm doing drone training, they're trying to coordinate my schedule with the person that is wanting the training. So they're kind of like this middleman, and it's annoying to be like, hey, she can do Tuesday. Can you do Tuesday? And I'm like, my Tuesday is booked, but can she do Thursday? And then you're like going through this middleman. So instead it's like, here's my schedule. You tell me what works for them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it kind of just alleviates that.
Well, that helps you too
from there
on your end because you do payment after the fact. So because we do payment prior, and we talked about this on the last episode, everything we do is 100% up front to even get on our schedule. Like, my problem would come in if you try to book a shoot, Billy, with me in Philadelphia, it would take your payment. And so then I'd have to call you back and go through a refund process and tell you like, hey, we don't do shoots in Philadelphia. And that happens with us of things obviously more local to us, someone booking 2 hours away, 3 hours away. So the in-person just takes all the guesswork out. First question is, where is it at? And then we can just turn them in a different direction instead of taking their money and dealing with it after. But sorry, keep going.
Well, now to finish it, like my back end is Square. So I do my invoicing through Square. Square actually has a lot of really awesome, abilities built in, like the ability to do contracts and stuff like that. So that's just how I process payments, makes it super easy. Honestly, I mean, look, people will say like, can I pay you cash? Can I pay with Venmo? Can I do this? Can I do that? And I know that people will like, almost salivate when someone pays them through Venmo because they think that they can like hide it for tax reasons, but it just makes my life harder. It's just like, I'm just like, please just pay me by credit card. I don't care about the 3% fee. Like people are like, oh, well, we'll avoid the fee. We'll avoid the $10 that is going to go to Square or whoever, in order to process his payment. But at the end of the day, that payment processing fee that I pay is a write-off. So you look at your lump sum at the end of the year and you say, hey, I paid $10,000 in whatever it's called. And Cameron, my camera just died. So right now the people are not seeing me, but they're just still hearing me.
You're fine. I'll put up a pretty picture of Billy for the end of this.
Okay. So, but I do want to continue to talk here because I want to discuss the booking thing. So while I try to get my camera back on, why don't you talk a little bit about online booking? I'll leave you with this. With online booking, I totally understand your pain, but have you ever tried like HD Photo Hub or Aereo? Do you know what those are?
No, I don't. I don't at
okay,
all.
So
my solution, are you talking about for booking?
For online booking. These are systems built specifically for real estate photography where you can actually build your schedule out and it'll look at travel. And if someone goes and says, hey, I want a photo shoot in Charlotte, but it knows that you're going to be somewhere else, it's going to give them availability based on where it knows you are with your schedule. So if it's like, oh, he's here and it's going to take him this long to drive here, we're not going to suggest this time for them.
It could. I mean, for me, my solution, which isn't the cheapest, and this isn't for everybody, is because I am more of like the company structure. I would rather hire somebody full-time. So I have a full-time operations manager, and that grants two things. First of all those are totally done, all solutions handled here, because she's taking in all that information. She's able to give that direction based on sunlight or sun direction. Like they're getting the best quality product possible from that. And then the customer service end of it as well, just having somebody on the phone and somebody to talk to and somebody ask questions to, you're much more likely to get that level of like commitment from them to give you the money if there's somebody on the phone with them, as opposed to going to an online booking site and just trusting that it's going to work out. Because every time that I've had to do something through online booking, whether it be like Tesla service or anything, like I want to ask questions. Like I want to ask like, how long do you think this is going to take? Could you get me in sooner? Is there like all these different things that I want to know? Does the drone go inside? We get that question all the time. There's so many curiosity things that they have, and to have like a warm, welcoming voice on the other end of the phone, sitting there and talking you through it, you're just more committed by that time. I mean, by the time someone gets on a phone call with me for booking a shoot, for example, I've asked so many questions about their business. I've like really convinced them that I'm the best fit for this project, that we are pretty much good to go. Like they are committed enough to just pay and get it booked. How's your camera doing over there?
Your long-winded answer gave me the time to go get new batteries. I swear, I know that you have a little studio there. I need to like make sure everything is hardwired in so that I never run out of storage and I never run out of battery and nothing ever overheats. Like that would be the dream, but of course we don't live in a perfect world. But yeah,
I know we're already at. Do you want to call it? Because we're already at about an hour and 50 minutes.
We are. I think that we've covered a lot. I think that we've given a lot of experience. I think that we've discussed a lot of things. I guess I'll leave it with like, if you want to start a business, the photography and videography, the actual work is 50% of it, and 50% goes into building the business. You've really got to have a good business acumen across the board, and I think that that's what is going to help you just overall build your actual business and really help provide good products and good services to the clients that you work with. Would you consider this a product or a service that you're offering?
I think it's a service to get to a product. To me, I see it as a product. Like everything that they get back, their final deliverable is the product. And like all in all, I mean, we've said this 1,000 times, but just to recap, like best quality customer service by far is the goal. Like it should be an absolutely frictionless, seamless experience working with you. You should feel like an extension to their team where they're wondering how they're getting this for the cost that they're getting it at. And then that end quality you get back needs to be super, super high quality as well. I mean, every single step of the process should be just an absolute, treat for them. And yeah, I mean, all in all, I think we've covered a lot here, but I think one of the bigger things compared with this episode to the last is we like going granular into detail on things. I think you guys could tell like some of the advice that we gave when we talk about gear, but that's where like your guys' questions comes in. So as we wrap up this podcast, leave your questions, DM it to us. Billy will link our Instagram profiles in the description. You can ask either of us and we'll answer it on the podcast. We'll even DM you back and answer it on the spot just so you can have it quickly, but you can also look forward to seeing it here. So leave any questions, any topics, anything like that. And there were a couple of things we couldn't get to this episode, like the artificial intelligence and all, that we'll be excited to get to on the next one. So tune in for the next one. Billy, any closing remarks?
No, Cameron, go to urgent care. I know you got to get that thing looked at.
I got to get my foot looked at. So I'm going to be heading there. Thank you guys so much for listening. We look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Let's go. Welcome to the main event. Applying pressure, but I promise